thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. May I now invite Professor Lalwani? And by the time they prepare the stage for the oration, I've got a few housekeeping announcements. So we have collaborated with a company called as Epoclar, and they are doing virtual reality simulation. They have created a station here. And those of you who participate and the person who gets the highest score, he will get an award. So I'll suggest that all of you who are here take the opportunity to see this VR station where images of CVJ patients are being displayed. So utilize that. And then in the afternoon, there will be an ultrasound workshop that will be conducted by Dr. Shweta. And I will suggest that all of you can get in touch with Dr. Shweta so that she can divide in batches and train all of you with for the use of ultrasound. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. On behalf of All India Institute of Medical Sciences, New Delhi, I welcome you all to this special session of Dr. P.N. Tandon Oration, organized by Department of Neurosurgery, AIIMS, New Delhi. And this is basically the fifth oration which we are organizing today. And we have with us Dr. Ashwini Sharan, who is orator of the day. So may I request Dr. Kale and Dr. Rajiv to formally welcome Dr. Sharan for this oration, please. To begin the proceeding, I request Professor Ashish Suri to introduce the oration, please.
Can you the slides, please? Good morning, Director Sir, and my seniors. Well, I'll be talking about the P.N. Tandon oration. This is the fifth Professor P.N. Tandon oration, and this oration has a history, right 11 years ago in 2011, and when we conducted the grand neurovascular CME and workshop. It was a grand event with radiosurgery, with intervention vascular as well as operative vascular, and it was like a spectrum, and it was a unique conference because we had three chairmen actually, and Dr. Mehta and Dr. Mahapatra and Dr. N.K. Mishra, but there were three chairmen, and there was very generous donations from this conference, and and it was submitted to AIIMS that can we have an oration in the name of our teachers, Professor P.N. Tandon and Professor A.K. Banerjee, and this was so it was named, and it was to be held on alternate years. And this oration was to be done on the annual AIIMS microneurosurgery workshop, and to be done, and the orator must be an eminent faculty from international repute with science and skills of neurosurgery. And this present year is Professor P.N. Tandon's oration. If you see, Sir has been our professor, emeritus professor, our teacher, and teacher of teachers actually. And if you, the rest is usual, but you see there's so many fellowships, so many F behind his names. And born on August 13, 1928 at Shimla, did his MBBS at KG, the famous KGMC, now the KGMU Lucknow, did his MS there, and FRCS in 1956 in England. And after that, he has got his specialized neurosurgery training in Oslo University in Norway and MNI McGill in Canada. And he founded the department. This department is started by him in 1965, and he still serves as an emeritus professor, though because of his age and health, but he still keeps a beautiful brain, and he keeps a check on every one of us, what we are doing. He's the founder president of the National Brain Research Center, an epicenter. It's a beautiful center from the Department of Biotechnology and Science and Technology Ministry. He's a member of the governing bodies of the CSIR, ICMR, UGC, and several others. Authored more than, I think this is old data, must be 350. He still writes actually, more than 350 papers, dozen monographs. He's been the president of the Neurological Society of India, the National Academy of Medical Sciences, the NASI, Allahabad, and the Indian Academy of Neuroscience. and also the fellow of the National Academy of Science, the National Academy of Science India, as well as the TWAS. And the most important, he's one of the only, probably the only, not only neurosurgeons, but also the surgeons who's also the secretary, the vice president, and the president of the Indian National Science Academy. Actually, I think this is a very big honor for us that we are his students. He's a member of several national and international societies. Regarding the awards are innumerable, and I cannot even give the list of that. The biggest ones, he's got the 3 highest national awards, national civilian awards of the country: the Padma Shri, the Padma Bhushan, and the Padma Vibhushan, plus the BCRI and the many others which are there. So the list actually ends with the. So our revered teacher found a place in our hearts, Professor P. N. Tandon. His main idea was stay hungry and stay curious. The more childish you are at heart and brain, the more you'll be able to understand and more you will be able to imbibe. So these are his products over the last several years. Many of them are sitting here with us, and we can see Dr. Agarwal here, and you can see Dr. Kale here, and you can see me with myself with a lot of hair here, and some more photographs are required. I'll request the younger Ross to just, I think this continues to now. So this is the 5th oration. The first one was done by Professor Ohata from Japan, and the second one from Dr. Karpurkar from Mumbai. And then it was the Dr. Mayank Goyal from Canada, the third one. And 2021, because of the COVID, we had restricted visitors. So we had Dr. P.K. Jain from Delhi. The 5th one, presented by the Director and Dean Academic of AIIMS and the Department of Neurosurgery, AIIMS today. The orator would be Dr. Ashwini Sharan. Thank you, Dr. Ashwini. Dr. Sharad would introduce him, please. Thank you.
So connect. It's my, am I audible? Yeah. It's my honor and proud privilege and happiness to present and introduce Professor Ashwini Sharan, a very good friend of mine. I've been knowing him for the past 2 decades. And just to give a brief outline, all of us know about Dr. Ashwini Sharan, but as it is in orations, we need a formal introduction. We need people who may not be aware of his achievements and his background to be aware of this. So he was born in Patna, Bihar, was raised and educated in US. He did his undergrad from Boston University and subsequently his MD from New Jersey Medical School. And then his residency in neurosurgery from University of Connecticut, Philadelphia. And then fellowship in spine surgery from Cleveland Clinic. And then fellowship in functional neurosurgery, again from Cleveland Clinic. And then he underwent a leadership course in health and quality and safety. And then him being, having the ability of doing so many things at once, also went ahead to do masters in population health quality improvement. So currently he is a professor at Thomas Jefferson University from 2002 onwards, and he is a program director for the residency. He is also the division director for functional neurosurgery and epilepsy, vice chair of neurosurgery operations, and co-director of Neuro-Restoration Center. His achievements are many. He's published very heavily, both in papers as well as in books. And he is an entrepreneur and an innovator. And it's always a pleasure to talk with him, because you sit with him, you start getting some ideas, and your discussion goes in a very productive way. And he has 6 patents, and he is founder of 5 startup companies, which is a big achievement for a neurosurgeon to look beyond his operating room, his patients, as well as his surgeries. He's received number of awards, the Distinguished Service Awards from NANS, then the Hind Ratan Award, NRI of the Year Award. He has been voted as Philadelphia's Best Doctors. He's received the Dean's Award for Excellence in Education, Best Publication Award in Brain Topology. Few images of 2019 for the Hind Ratan Award. He's been a leader, and he's one of the few Indian surgeons of Indian origin who has occupied very significant leadership positions in international organizations. So he's been the president of North American Neuromodulation Society, president of American Association of South Asian Neurological Surgeons. He was also the 68th president of Congress of Neurological Surgeons, and that's a matter of pride for all of us. He's been mentored by people who have been who's who of neurosurgery, and I can see all of them over here. Somehow he has managed to strike a very nice balance on the family front as well as a professional front. He's married very happily to Dr. Kannu Sharan from Lady Harding, and he's blessed with 2 wonderful children, 2 daughters. One is joined medicine and the other is planning to do medicine. Is that right, Ashwini? She's also planning to do medicine. Okay, she's planning to do computer science. And he's an adventurer by heart. So he's open to everything. So yesterday we were speaking about Hindu temples and telling that how we are part of a group called Temple Run. He immediately was interested. He said he'd like to explore all the temples. So at heart, he's an adventurer open to all kinds of possibilities. 2015, he has been here. He has been here with us for several workshops. And 2015, when we were here, we did the first LITT for India, which we demonstrated in the workshop here. And then we have held multiple conferences all over the country for epilepsy. And this is when we organized a conference in Varanasi in 2018, and he was one of the faculty. And this is with his team as of 2023. So ladies and gentlemen, again, it's my proud privilege to present you Professor Ashwini Sharan, surgeon par excellence, entrepreneur, leader, researcher, family man, and above all, a great friend, not only personally to me, but also for department and also for India. So thank you very much.
Sharat, thank you for that kind introduction. And also thank you for the invitation, Dr. Kale, Department of AIIMS, great friends, Vivek, Ashish, Manmohan, Ramesh. Coming to India, this opportunity for me is greater than I can express to you. Because for me, it's a lot of pride. Because at some level, I believe that India should rule the world. You know, it's such a prosperous country. It's such a prosperous country with such incredible talent, such incredible energy. Even when I'm seeing what's done at Sri Chitra today with the engineering and the dedication to neurosurgery to make cost-effective treatment. You know, in the Western world, healthcare is really, I'll speak about something else in a second, but I'll use this platform for a second to say this. Healthcare is not designed to take care of people, right? In many ways, it's designed to take care of this high-end population. I think even here, we're seeing that these great hospitals are coming to take care of only the small 5% who can afford it. And that's not the mission, I think, that we took on as doctors. So I won't get so philosophical right now on that, but it brings me to heart to see what can be done with pure surgical skills. You know, like we talked a little bit today about the full seal and thrombin, which is astronomical amounts of money, but then it makes the surgeon become a little bit less tidy about hemostasis. So all this technology is great, but it comes at a very high cost when you can do hemostasis. When I saw Dr. Gatto, even the videos you showed is bloodless. It's truly bloodless, and it can be done if you're trained right. So Today, my intention is different. Like Sharan said, I always try to look forward. And it's, I don't know if it's my curiosity or why that is the case. And so when I look at functional neurosurgery, my career has been designed around bringing spine and pain together, bringing treatment DBS for Parkinson's disease and epilepsy. So what are the themes that come together? And I want to take you along that journey in the last 10 years, how my past has influenced where we're going to go. And that's the intention of this idea and the talk of what is the impact of big data for functional neurosurgery, okay? Now, if you break down things into its components, so if you want to be a system thinker, you have to understand the components of the system. Functional neurosurgery is very basically this: targeted accuracy, right? We want to get the catheter, the lead, the lesion probe in that right location. Sometimes we do targeted drug delivery. People know that there's intrathecal baclofen and intrathecal morphine. We're also doing intraventricular drug delivery for epilepsy with cerebral therapeutic. We have lesioning. Everybody doesn't need an electrode and a pacemaker. You can actually heat the tissue and disrupt the network, right? But fundamentally, there's modulation of the electrophysiology of the brain and the spinal cord, right? So that's something that I think we did. Now, in functional neurosurgery and neurosurgery, we're not involved in disease and comorbidity management. And I say that this is one reason why neurosurgery is not growing and why functional neurosurgery is not growing. See, functional neurosurgery, again, is a high-end therapy for a small population of patients, but it's not rampant in the entire population, okay? And so how do we actually get there? So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about why this big data journey started for me. I'm going to take you through the functional neurosurgery lessons learned, and then I'm going to show you where wearables and implantables are going to change disease management and give you a few conclusions, okay? So medicine today fundamentally is flawed. And it's flawed because all the diagnosis code, epilepsy, Parkinson's, let's call it chronic pain, the three major areas for functional neurosurgery, these terms were defined 100, 150, 200 years ago. They don't give you phenotypic classification, and they don't help you with any one individual. In fact, I argue every clinical trial that's designed, they have entry criteria. Somebody should have partial unaware seizures, and then the outcome is they have no seizures. So every trial doesn't take into account everything in the middle that you do today as doctors, that we do, right? Of all the things that go into the decision-making, that data is lost because we want to simplify the message. Pharmaceutical wants you to buy the drug and say epilepsy drug, right? Parkinson's drug, right? Parkinson's DBS, but it's not that simple. And we have let that happen in doctors, right? Because as doctors, we live down here. We live in the real world evidence. No single patient fits that one simple criteria. They're all individual. They all have nuances, which we were discussing today in the case conference, right? There's no simple tumor that you can just use one approach because there's nuances to everything. And how do we keep that data so we can make better and better decisions? Society is maturing. We're no longer in the 1850s, 1950s, where that's all we had, right? Today, we have the ability to acquire this. So my thinking fundamentally changed when I read this book by Victor Mayer Schonberger in 2013. He's an economics professor at Oxford. And he told the story about, this is not the COVID virus, this is the influenza flu virus. And so every year, the CDC collects data on the incidence of, every hospital has to report how many hospitalizations are being done with the virus, with the flu virus, every year. These teams at Google said, can we actually write a machine learning algorithm, take the data of Google searches, and can we predict when there's going to be more outbreak or where there's going to be more outbreak, right? Because you have geotagging, location tagging of this. And the blue is actually what the Google predicted. The yellow is what the CDC records predicted. So just by looking at search criteria, now look, they didn't answer the why. What was done was an observation. The observation was that there are some search criteria happening locally. Maybe somebody's looking for flu medicine, chicken soup, something to treat their flu, but there's no doubt there's patterns of human behavior that correlated with the rise in the flu, okay? So it's descriptive, but it's very precisely descriptive. If you go back and look at the correlation of that, with the number of people on this planet doing Google searches, it was that predictive in the United States. So fundamentally, it's changing the way you look at someone, something, or a disease process, right? Like we all know that you take a magnifying glass, and this is why I love this picture so much. You can see the detail in the blurry glass that you can't, right? So you can see the truth. So this is fundamentally what big data is about, is having these data sets and then using these artificial intelligence analytics tools to see more than we can do today. And I find it interesting in neurosurgery because neurosurgery is all about visualization, right? It's all about knowing the detail, knowing where the blood vessel is before you run into it, right? And so you need to have this concept in your mind that you're willing to open your eyes. Now, if we as physicians don't adopt this strategy, somebody in big business will. This is The Economist 2017, 2018, talking about data as being the world's most valuable resources. Right now, they think that health data platforms can result in annual benefits about like $25 billion in the US in direct savings for R&D, for development of new drugs, for longevity of the human condition. So you can identify problems even before they happen, and I'll talk about that. Apple, Google, Facebook, Microsoft, everybody's getting into healthcare. Do you know why they're getting healthcare? They have the data platforms. They will be able to predict your complications. They will be able to predict your cost effectiveness, and they will make money on that, okay? And the point is not to make money, but the point is that they're gonna take the dollars, they're gonna take the rupees out of the healthcare system, and you're gonna be told what to do if you don't understand how to take advantage of this in the future. So I'm going to take you through a functional neurosurgery journey and give you three stories. But we as physicians, and this is something that I urge India to get into, not just engineering of medical devices. India is the IT capital of the world. India today, IBM has more employees in India than they do outside of India. IBM today is an Indian company. Now, they don't advertise this anymore because there's a lot of political ramifications. But 55% of IBM employees are based in India today. Right? So think about that. It's ridiculous. Now, we have PAC system, you have PAC system. Can you analyze the last 50 big tumors you have? There's no tool set that allows you to do that. Can you look at all your trigeminal neuralgia cases and look at the variations in anatomy and measure the nuances and the details so you can figure out if you do an endoscope and the most precise cranial incision or the bone opening? You cannot. It is all done manually today, and it can all be done with analytic tools, right? Today, we have auto self-driving cars because we can analyze all the images from video real time. The tools all exist. The tools have been perfected by other industries, and we have to start applying those, okay? And record keeping, the EMR record keeping system. It's probably starting in India. In the US, an organization like Thomas Jefferson, just to give you a sense, we have 17 hospitals. To go to an Epic EMR system cost Thomas Jefferson $1.2 billion. That's ridiculous. For a computer system to keep medical records, that's what we had to pay to get there. And then that data can't be used to provide better care. It's really a way just to catalog. It's a filing cabinet. It's a digital filing cabinet. That's all it is, right? So these systems aren't even being designed for us to deliver better care, fundamentally, or make more knowledge and move the field. So DBS, first story, DBS for epilepsy. First implanted in man in 2004, first publication in 2010, and in 2015, long-term efficacy studies were coming, 5-year follow-up from the first year study, okay? And FDA approved in 2018. So 14-year journey from the first implant in man anterior nucleus to 2018, showing fairly good results, maybe a 60% reduction in seizures. So definitely not a curable intervention. But once it got FDA approved in 2018, so many questions still obtained. Is transventricular targeting the best way outside the ventricles? What is the best way to get to the anterior nucleus? In that study, 110 patients were done across 17 sites, okay? And we had some idea on how to hit the anterior nucleus, and the field has evolved. Now remember, 2004 to 2018, most people think that this is modern today digital era, okay? So this hit me in 2012 when this publication came out, and it didn't hit me for some reason until 2014 and 15 because we were starting now to do DBS for anterior nucleus. And this paper I came up and I realized we all know that there's hippocampal atrophy in epilepsies, in temporal lobe epilepsies. We know there's mammillary body atrophy. We know that there's fornix atrophy. Well, guess what? There's also thalamic atrophy. And this paper showed that quite elegantly. They did registration and they showed the problems. And even with age and the aging population, there's atrophy of the cortex. And so then I asked this question because we had a case where I didn't think I could actually target the anterior nucleus. And then I said, wait, did that happen in the study? Was the 60% efficacy that we saw a result of inaccuracy in targeting? So we went back to pull our own patients. In the study, we actually implanted 8 patients. And I tried to pull up their MRIs, and I could only find 6 of them. So even at Thomas Jefferson, where we had this expensive EMR and PAC system, we could only get 6 MRIs back. Then I went to Medtronic and I said, oh, there's 110 patients. Can you show me the database? Do you know how many patients were in their database with MRI images? 0. It was never preserved. So we couldn't even go back and from the best data that existed, make a conclusion about was the study flawed? Potentially because of thalamic atrophy, right? Because knowledge comes around later. So just give you a sense that we didn't collect data. Okay, second study. So 2010, we started doing laser ablation. We did a case here on this young girl in 2015 with hypothalamic hamartoma. We also did an MTS, okay? And so now tell you where this field is going with laser. So, you know, one laser probe is not complicated, but anybody who's done stereo EEG or, you know, DBS is 2 passes in the brain and stereo EEG could be 16 or 18. And as people are getting comfortable, it's probably going higher. And and planning becomes, you know, quite onerous because you have to find a trajectory where you're going to miss sulcus, you know, miss a gadolinium enhancement reflection of a blood vessel. And so groups are starting to make automated planning systems. So we started collaborating with UCL in London because they actually had a really good IT infrastructure to do image analytics. And we created this plan with them on 25 patients, right? So not impressive, but, you know, more than 6 patients looking at thalamic atrophy. And there is a very good computer automated trajectory system that can actually one-to-one get you better ablation volume. See, because there's a fatigue. Anytime a human tries to do something, you're going to get tired, you're going to get frustrated. You may not, you know, do part of it, come back, right? Even anybody who does tumor surgery, like Dr. Gatto is going to demonstrate today, there's a fatigue and you got to push yourself through it, right? So same thing happens in this trajectory planning, right? And you're more likely to make mistakes or take a deviant course when that happens. And so I think somewhere, you know, we have this idea that automated trajectory systems have to happen. And that's actually showing that actually, even with 25 patients, it can actually have better results as time goes by. Then do we know what optimization of targeting is, right? And so my young partner, Dr. Chen Wu, I think came here a couple of years ago. He compiled 234 patients from about 12 centers. Now there's no data set that allowed him to do this. He had to get literally the DICOM MRI images on all 234 patients. We put it in a platform that we created called Neuro-Targeting, which allowed us to synchronize everything on a single platform, co-register it to the brain, and then allow us to do quantitative assessments of the hippocampus to try to say what's the most optimal targeting point, right? So showing that if you start collaborating with multiple centers, have a platform that can ease data acquisition. For us, neurosurgery visualization means MRI images. You can draw better conclusions. The study was halted and we redesigned the study to optimize the targeting. And for amygdala and hippocampal targeting today, most people are using, about half the people are using 2 probes because of the changes in the, you know, it's very simple, right? The amygdala hippocampus is a curved structure. It's not linear. So with 1 probe, you can't optimize, you know, the targeting. And then when you're doing radio frequency, you'll notice the same thing. You'll probably need multiple probes if you want to optimize ablation and seizure outcomes. Third story, in that same decade, I was part of a $23 million 4-year grant that Mike Kahana orchestrated to study memory, right? And this study, the reason there's a disclaimer, it was funded by DARPA. And so the opinions that aren't of the US military, and against a multinational, you know, collaborative study with 7 centers, and Medtronic was an industry partner, with the idea that if we could actually discover something to impact memory, then we can actually commercialize it. So every patient who was implanted with grids or strips or stereo EEG were given words to memorize. And you could tell if they could recall or forget the word. After they saw the word, they were distracted with the math problem, and then they were asked to recall, right? So we had a paradigm, a reproducible paradigm that you can repeat 30 times in an hour and get a statistical analysis and create a classifier for a human memory. And in this 3.5 years, we were able to get 300 subjects, 1,500 memory tests, and get data from 20,000 electrode positions in the brain, and the collective human data set is shown over there. And this is just a video to show this is not fMRI. This is a video showing electrocorticography activation in the brain on 300 patients. So you can see when a word is given to the person, you get occipital activation. So you'll see occipital activation going towards the hippocampus. The patient is probably repeating it to themselves, Broca's and Wernicke's, as memory is forming, right? So now you can get a really big, deeper understanding of the formation of human memory electrophysiologically with 30,000 recording points in the human brain. So this is the power that could happen. And then we started doing the next step. Could you stimulate strategically, both temporally and spatially, to either augment or reduce memory? And that's what we started doing. And that's the phase of the study that this is in. And this has actually gone on to commercialize to a company, which is actually now studying to do this forward, okay? So the point is that with a lot of collaboration, collecting the data and collecting the electrophysiology, we probably can get to somewhere better. So where is the world going today? And today, now I'm going to shift to talking about wearable and implantable sensors, okay? So today there's a company in the United States, Rune Labs, that is using the Apple Watch, and Apple Watch is putting a lot of money into healthcare. They're working with orthopedics, they're working with urology, they're working with gyne, for looking at menstrual cycles. They're working with Medtronic, working on Parkinson's disease. And people may be aware, for 10 years, Medtronic has had a research platform that has allowed communication, the RC system, to allow downloading of LFP information, from the device. It's a rechargeable device, and looking at LFPs. And so Apple Watch, working with Rune Labs, now can actually download the LFP information. Now, so imagine this, they have the tracking information, activity, right? They have the sleep information, and they have tremor information. Their watch can actually quantify tremor. And how does that correlate with one-to-one time synchronized care of the human LFP system? So that is what's being generated now in the last few years. This just came out from MIT, literally about 6 months ago. These really clever scientists put breathing bands on patients, and they did a video camera, and they correlated 2 ways to look at breathing signals. And they didn't know what the pattern of breathing was. By looking at nighttime breathing on 644 patients with Parkinson's disease, they had a 95% accuracy prediction of UPDRS scores. Now, we don't think of the diaphragm as a skeletal muscle, which can have a tremor or rigidity, because we could never quantify it. By looking at these fine signals of stretching and simple impedance changes, right? Impedance can be measured on picometers today at pennies, right? So by looking at impedance changes of breathing and looking at videos, which can quantify really fine motor stuff, right? Today's satellites can look at the Earth from 60,000 feet, maybe 60,000, I don't remember how many miles, but 60,000 feet in the sky. They can analyze what's happening on the ground in terms of movement. So that technology has been subsidized and allowed scalability, and that's what's being used here. So you can quantify disease state. Now imagine if you put this inside our devices in the future, right? Where does the battery sit in a DBS? Right on the chest wall. So with accelerometers, you should be able to quantify the fluctuations in breathing. And so that's what I'm trying to show you, is the imagination of what's happening and where the field will go. Looking at LFPs and what has been discovered by looking at brain sensing, there's correlation between LFPs and dyskinesia, with high gamma signal, and corresponding with beta as well. So there's hypomotor and hypermotor symptoms that could be correlated. And you should be able to use these plots and curves, the heat maps, to actually synchronize the medications. We can actually do circadian monitoring. So when somebody has a DBS implanted and you're sensing, it's fully 100% compliant. Anybody who here has worn a Fitbit, you eventually get tired of wearing it. You're not sure how that's coming into actionable data to do a change in your life. But for these patients who have fluctuations in disease state and can't sleep at night, you can actually now take this to the neurologist, and optimize the medications. Some patients, perhaps as neurosurgeons, we know are not, but they don't take their medicines at night. They want to save their pill. It's a cost. It's a headache. They forget. There's 100 reasons, right? But then in the morning, the LFPs will show that they've fallen behind on the modulation of their disease state. So that's the type of information an internal biomarker can do. Evoke compound action potential. So the signal on the spinal cord, because the gray matter in the spinal cord is in the center, the white matter is on the outside, a little bit harder to sense, but you can actually stimulate a point in the spinal cord and look at the reaction of the white matter tracts, right? So that's called an evoke compound action potential. And evoke compound action potentials now are coming into commercial use, both by a company called Saluda and Medtronic is going to release it. I think it's already released in Japan and being in trials in Australia at this point. Now, the commercial application is just to adjust the stimulation. So as the spinal cord moves away from the spinal cord stimulator, you can change the stimulation. But now, take a step back and imagine again, a little different. So to record the electrical signal in the spinal cord means that you have to filter out the heart rate and breathing. The heart rate signals are on milliamps and the spinal cord signals are on microamps. So you got to filter out the heart rate. But if you don't filter the heart rate out, now all of a sudden you can measure heart rate variability. You can say, so what? But how about if you're actually putting spinal cord stimulators in patients with diabetic peripheral neuropathy for the peripheral neuropathy pain? Patients who have diabetic peripheral neuropathy also have autonomic neuropathy, which gives them a 5 to 10% risk of heart attack lifelong, which can be quantified with changes in QR interval and heart rate variability measures, right? So our spinal cord stimulator electrode, think of the future application that could be created, not only for adjusting the stimulation, but imagine what we're going to discover about the spinal cord and the comorbidities that happen with this disease management. I think everybody's also familiar with NeuroPace. NeuroPace now has been recording and actually databasing long-term electrocorticography. So I give this company a lot of credit because they're probably turning into a data company as time is going by. And they're showing circadian rhythms to epilepsy. And more importantly, they're also showing that it's not just, it's not on a monthly cycle. There are people who have 6-week cycles for epilepsy, unknown biologically what that means, right? This is why many people have this idea that there's catamenial epilepsy is a real thing, because, 6 and 4 both factor to 12, right? And so sometimes you made the observation that it was hormonal or catamenial when it was actually a 6-week cycle, right? And that's why these studies have been so confusing, because we didn't really have accurate long-term data. So with the RNS, you can quantify, it's not quantifying epileptic events, but it's quantifying electrophysiological signal that corresponds with epileptic events, but it has 24/7 recording capabilities over long-term time. So it's giving us much insight. It can show that detection rates and how seizures decrease over time. It can show when you add medications, how these events can reduce over time, right? Even patients who have bilateral MTS who get RNS, it can show lateralization over time because most symptomatic seizures are coming from one side and another. And you can't always find that in the EMU in a 1-week admission, right? So this is what long-term data collection is doing. This is also something as physicians we should be thinking about, but even the world of pain will change. For too many years, we've been thinking about the VAS score, which doesn't help you take care of a single human being, right? So the NIH in the same last decade invested in something called the PROMIS 29, or the PROMIS platform. There's a PROMIS 57 and a PROMIS 29, 57 for research, 29 for simple care. And Higgs Boson Health has created a platform so you can collect all these 7 domains, patient-reported outcome measures, physical function, pain interference, depression, anxiety, fatigue, sleep, and satisfaction in social and ADLs. So now the chronic pain patient should come to you with a report. You can say that, oh, physical function is better, but anxiety and depression is bad, fatigue is off, so maybe it's a hormonal or nutrition or sleep. So you should be able to help the patient get better faster. As neurosurgeons in functional neurosurgery, I think we have to get out of this idea that you're just going to find the next target, and the next target is going to cure Alzheimer's. I think you have to start thinking about how you're going to take care of a patient with a disease state. And it's a fundamental flaw that we had in functional neurosurgery. And when we think about neurologists not sending the patient, it's our flaw, because we're not really understanding what the patients go through. Like we spoke today about the Parkinson patient, fixing his dyskinesia off state will improve the quality of life, but he'll still have freezing of gait and he'll still have a stooping posture, and the stooping posture will cause him to fall. And when he gets older, he will fracture his femur. Is that just the neurologist's responsibility, or is it also our responsibility to be in that spectrum of care, right? Are we just a proceduralist that puts the electrode in? Are we going to help manage the patient? And I think functional neurosurgery has to take this seriously. So some final thoughts about imagining what a tomorrow can look, and to show you how much the data will actually make a difference, okay? And again, emphasizing that when we see a patient, disease fluctuate, okay? And we're only seeing one moment in time when they're in our clinic, right? We know with Parkinson's, if you don't examine the patient off and on the dopamine, you're not seeing their true Parkinson's and their disability. Most of the time when you see patients with epilepsy, they're not seizing. You're seeing them at the one point at a time where they're partially functional. And same thing with chronic pain, it's episodic, right? There's large variations in presentation, and patients may not even be aware of all their symptoms and how that's impacting the disability, because we don't have the ability to be inside their house and have chronic disease management with them. And functional neurosurgery, because you're taking modulation procedures, the programming strategy is highly dependent on the anatomy. And arguably, the neurosurgeons really should be better experts at the programming strategy as well. So I can get into that. So there's the Europeans, the EU, have invested about $20 million in this NeuroTwin platform. So they're collecting EEG data, MRI data, tractography data, PET scan on Alzheimer's patients on a population basis. And I think their goal is to get 30,000 patients. And they're doing TMS, they're doing TDCS, different non-invasive current stimulation to see if you can actually create a digital twin. So if you can slow down the cognitive decline in mild and moderate cognitive impairment, can you then identify the digital twin? So you can take all this phenotypic information from all these data sets and say, look, you resemble that. And this is the course of action that you should take, because you're more likely to respond, right? So the concept of a digital twin is forming if your data sets are robust enough to show good and bad outcome, right? Now in neurosurgery, imagine if you can show that that tumor has a 90 with blood vessels inside it, with the brainstem and cerebellar, that you have 95% accuracy that this thing has had these complications or not. Right now, guess what? Everybody in this room guesses at how that can happen. But it can all be quantified with these platforms in the future. Collaborative data sets are finally forming. The Parkinson's Foundation, Epilepsy Foundation, these foundations are investing finally millions of dollars so people can upload their data, both with sensors, MRIs, and that, because until these happen, we can't get there. And again, Apple Health is in this market as well, because they're going to collect all the data at home regarding their nutrition and that status. So we have to get to a point in functional neurosurgery more than other fields that we're going to give data-driven care. And so we can deliver more personalized care and patients can have better outcomes. Look, patients don't just want their tremor to stop. They want their Parkinson's managed to optimize to get a better life. And so it's not about having surgery. It's about having surgery for what reason, right? Essential tremor patients don't come to surgery because they can manage 100 different ways to drink and have soup, right? With straws and have assistance or family support, right? So do you really understand as a functional neurosurgeon, when do essential tremors patients really come to us for surgery? When they find it embarrassing that they can't go to public and restaurants, right? So until you really get emotionally attached to the patient and understand their disability, I argue that we're not going to grow in functional neurosurgery. And guess what? Functional neurosurgeries are awfully small. Worldwide, there's about 100,000 spinal cord stimulators. There's about 35,000 DBS. I mean, if you think about that, in the United States, there's only about 5,000 epilepsy surgeries done a year. And by the way, we can cure people's disease, right? But is the quality of care around America the same in all the centers? Do patients have predictability on what they can get? Do you know why Starbucks, Dunkin' Donuts, and I don't know what the brand or Pizza Hut are so successful all over the world? Because you can go to any single one, anytime, anywhere, and have the same exact result. Do we offer that to patients? Absolutely not, because we don't think on scale as doctors, because as doctors, you're thinking about more of an individual one-on-one basis. And we have the opportunity, like we're showing you, You're going to have internal sensors, LFB monitoring in Parkinson's disease. You're having electrocorticography monitoring in epilepsy. You're having ECAP monitoring in pain. All these devices have accelerometers, and they can be basically a Fitbit inside there, right? And so if we basically understand these comorbidities of sleep, gait, posture, attention, how body physiology impacts the overall wellness of somebody, can we give better care? And will patients trust us to have more and more safer surgery, right? Because functional neurosurgery, let's be honest, it's not dangerous surgery, right? Fairly predictable in terms of delivering an electrode to the right target, right? So until we take this data and incorporate it into our new paradigm, I think that functional neurosurgery is a little bit doomed to be where it is, growing very slowly things. So the impact of the talk today is not so much to tell you that everybody should stop what they're doing and doing this, is to show in a country that is as great as India, where you have a lot of patients and you can actually get this data faster. The hardest part that you have is follow-up, because patients get care in local regions and may not come back to the center. So, but if you have implantable sensors now in bodies, people, then anybody can download that through a Wi-Fi onto the local network, and you can get that data. So this will happen very fast. It hopefully will happen with the input of the doctors and physicians, and not administrators, and not insurance carriers and companies, and not just the technology companies, because what are they going to do with that data, right? At the end of the day, they just want to sell more and more when it comes down to it, right? But the fundamental thing that we have together in this room is that we're on that battlefield with the patient one-to-one. Get out of the mindset in functional neurosurgery that you're just putting leads in, you're just resecting the seizure focus. Get into the mindset that you're taking care of these patients. Thank you very much. Any questions or discussion? There has to be some controversy. Okay.
So in oration, we don't have question and answer session. Now it is time to felicitate the orator of the day, Dr. Sharan. So may I request our Honorable Director, Dr. Kale, Head of the Department of Neurosurgery, Dr. Sharma, to felicitate the orator of the day, please. Sir. अच्छा कुछ बोलना चाह रहे बोलेंगे बोलना after okay, so you will deliver. So now I request Dr. Manmohan Singh to deliver a vote of thanks, please.
It is my honor to thank Dr. Ashwini Sharan, and he's a fantastic surgeon. He's a fantastic human being and a very good friend. And he's a multifaceted personality. And once you sit with him, you will realize that he's a totally different person. And he's such a charming person that it will make an impression on your mind forever. So I really thank you, Dr. Ashwini, to come here and deliver oration on Dr. P.N. Tandon. And I think we are really honored to have you here. And he has come here with his whole team of the Department of Neurosurgery. I really thank them also because they have contributed for this organization of this microneurosurgery workshop. So I really want to thank our Honorable Director, Dr. Srinivas, to be here. And he's also, I think, a very, very enthusiastic person to have everything digital and to stimulate us to do everything, something new, which probably we have not done in the before. Like to thank Dr. Sharma to be here, always encouraging us. Dr. Kale, he's our head of the department, to have always the source of encouragement. I would like to thank all the delegates who have come from far-flung places, from the other countries, to be a part of this meeting as a great success. Dr. Tandon is here. Sir, good morning, sir. Can you hear us?
Good morning. Good morning.
Really good to have you here, sir. So I would like to have any point of view from your angle, sir. So want to hear from you, sir.
Okay. Well, first, let me thank Ashwini Sharan for taking us into future. Most of us are really tied down to our present, and therefore we are not able to progress. However, the Department of Neurosurgery has shown from its very beginning that it has continued to look forward to what is new and what is likely to be new. I still remember the day when Dr. Sneh Bhargava, our professor of radiology, returned from a visit abroad and came back and said, "Oh, now you don't have to do these pneumograms, ventriculograms. You'll see the brain without all this intervention." And we all laughed. And within 2 years, we had the CT scan installed in the institute, the first one in the country. I can go on many such examples, but I must congratulate Dr. Ashwini Sharan for bringing this very, very new field of collecting and utilizing data for micromanagement of patients. I must say, we had not thought of it so far. I had not thought of it, but I'm too old now to think of too many new things. I can certainly say that we are ignorant even of what knowledge exists. I've been recently just looking at one simple example of speech. Where is the speech located in the brain? And we all come back to Broca and Wernicke, and I found out that that is just fraction of the brain that these areas mean as far as speech is concerned. So, similarly about the thalamus, the variation in the thalamus that Dr. Ashwini Sharan has just talked about is obvious and well known, at least to the pathologist. But that had not percolated down to the surgeon. Anyway, I don't want to take too long of your time, but I must also thank the department for doing this honor to me to have this oration in my name. And they have always attempted to bring somebody outstanding like Ashwini Sharan to give this oration, so that the department continues its childhood curiosity, a youthful adventure, and an elderly thought combined together in its progress. And I wish them all good progress as they have been doing ever since the department existed. Thank you very much. Thanks all the candidates or delegates who have come. And I'm amazed to see the list of the alumni from the department who are participating in this particular workshop. I have got a list sent by Dr. Kale very kindly, and I'm absolutely amazed to see their enthusiasm. And that shows that those whom we trained continue to carry the enthusiasm for learning more and more throughout their life, as represented by these people who have come here. I thank all of them. I wish I could be there personally, but unfortunately, it is not possible for a variety of reasons. But anyway, I'm happy to have been able to listen to this as well as to Sarveshwari oration yesterday. Thank you all very much for taking care of me at this stage and keeping my brain still ticking. And I hope it will remain so. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your pearls of wisdom and encouragement. And you are always the force behind us to do better, always. And I'd like to thank our backend players and the department whom I cannot name. So thank you, everybody, to be here. So I think we can have a cup of tea outside just after that. Thank you.